Welcome to another edition of Seahawks Forever. I am Dan, and that's why I am calling this the All Dan team. I've done all-time starting lineups before. I've done all underrated teams. I've done the Mount Rushmore a few weeks back. But this one has one criteria. How much do I like these players? Sometimes it turns out they are the best at their position in Seahawks history statistically, but sometimes not. And that doesn't matter because my only criteria is how much I like these players. Let's see if you agree with me. This one will be fun. This is my All Dan team coming up next.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
As always, here's the checklist. Hit the like button. That's the thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Best way to support the channel. Check the description for all the other options. I have a Patreon. You can check out the membership tiers there for some exclusive material and being able to watch everything I do ad-free. There's the new Substack. There's 2 pieces posted. I am writing again in conjunction with the content that I create here. That is free until we get into training camp. Check that out. And even when we get into camp, it will be extremely, extremely cheap. And there are other ways that you can contribute and donate down below as well, as I am a full-time content creator. Follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever also. All right, let's get into this. This is it. The All Dan team. Now, I did think about calling this Dan's Dandy. Why? Well, many, many years ago, 30 to be precise, when I was doing the television broadcasting thing, I did a play of the day. That was kind of the thing back then, right? ESPN's play of the day. I called it the Dan's Dandy. And I did it in 2 different markets. It was a big deal. When people would see me in public, they'd go, Dan's Dandy. But here's the thing. Here's why I didn't call this my Dan's Dandies, for example, is I'm bringing Dan's Dandy back. Once we get into the season, every week, midweek, after a game, I will choose the most entertaining, the most incredible, the most impactful play from that game, bringing back the Dan's Dandy. So just calling this the All Dan team, okay? And again, I know probably someone is going to still want to argue with me on this list, but my only criteria is these are my favorite players, okay? Let's start at quarterback, Matt Hasselbeck. If you've watched my show before we went on the road and it's green screened, you would see the signed football in the back. He was my favorite player during that era on those teams, period. And my favorite quarterback. And that's a high bar. I've always been a quarterback guy. I played quarterback when I was young. Like I've always just gravitated towards the quarterbacks. I always buy the quarterback jersey. I had a bunch of Russell Wilson jerseys, right? And Jim Zorn was my favorite when I was a kid and got the opportunity to meet him 3 different times and had his autograph and all that kind of stuff. Matt was just a guy that I always appreciated for a bunch of reasons. One is he was always just so candid and transparent in how he talked about the game. He was always willing to take on accountability when he played poorly. I always liked how he bounced back from bad games. I liked how he bounced back from, being down early in his career when he got benched for Trent Dilfer. But also I just always thought he was really good and didn't get enough credit among some segment of the fan base. It was a very similar story arc in some ways to what we saw with Geno Smith. And I've even made the comparison that I think Sam Darnold reminds me of Hasselbeck in some ways, in that he was always, for 10 years, he was a very, very good quarterback in the NFL. And yet there was a big part of the fan base that always wanted better. And I knew this firsthand because my dad was one of the biggest proponents of Hasselbeck sucks, we need to improve over him. And his answer was always the guy behind him, right? He thought Seneca Wallace should have been it. He thought Mike Teal should have been it after he had that one good first half in a preseason game against the Raiders as a rookie. And so, I've always had an issue with the term mid, right? And that's kind of always where Matt was, like somewhere between the 12th and 18th best quarterback in the league, right? You can make that argument. And so to anyone who ever said, we got to do better, I would always counter that with, well, who are you going to get? And the names that they would give me are quarterbacks that weren't available because they were not going to be traded by their other teams. Or it was, well, just draft a rookie. Took us to our first Super Bowl. Loved his play style. I just liked the way he played the game. He was sneaky athletic, could move pretty well at his size, had a stronger arm than people gave him credit for. I just really liked the way he played the game. And so for that reason, he was my favorite. And, oh, yeah, he was pretty good. He's 30th all-time in passing yards in NFL history. He's ahead of names like Jim Kelly, Tony Romo, Steve Young, Kurt Warner, Phil Simms. He was pretty good. At running back, I only listed one, and it's Marshawn Lynch. I could have gone two. There's a bunch of other guys I liked. Obviously, I liked Sean Alexander. I really liked Thomas Rawls. I liked his play style until he broke his ankle. It's a damn shame. He never really got that back. But how do you not like Marshawn? Just loved the way he attacked the game. There's a reason he's tattooed on my arm, right? Tattoo that was personally endorsed by him, by the way. Over 10,000 yards, 17th all-time, 85 rushing touchdowns. He transformed the identity of the Seahawks in how he ran the football and how he played the game. I just loved his style, that bow-legged, kind of wide stance. It was almost like every step was a jump cut. So much fun to watch. I wish he could have played for 15 years. At receiver, Largent, the other tattoo, obviously, greatest receiver in team history. I maintain best player in team history, but also just the most fun. Like, his story was great. 4th-round pick, cast off by the Oilers. Too small, too white, too slow. And then when he retired, he had every single receiving record that there was. He understood what he could and couldn't do, and he made himself great. And then if, to cap it all off, I guess if you thought, well, he's too milquetoast, he doesn't do a lot of interviews. He's not the most outspoken guy or the most personable guy. The Mike Harden thing, getting the revenge hit on the Denver safety, kind of changed that whole profile, didn't it? Tyler Lockett right behind him, second all-time in team history in receptions and yards. Just the thing that I remember about Tyler that was cool is at the time he was drafted, I was writing for 12th Man Rising with Keith Myers. And we had a young writer. I can't remember his name now to save my life. I wish I could, and I'd give him credit for this. But for the months leading up to that draft, he was like, Tyler Lockett, Tyler Lockett, Tyler Lockett. He can return kicks and punts. He's the best route runner in this draft. They need to draft Tyler Lockett. And I was like, whatever. He's like 4'9". I was so happy for him when they drafted him, and then he became the player that he became. Just some of the great catches we've ever seen. Catching balls in traffic at his size, the way he did, unbelievable. And then just everything you want in a teammate and a person off the field as well. How can you not love Tyler Lockett? Tight end was a tough one. I was scrolling through like history and who had the most catches, and then it just hit me. Like, Will Dissly, again, another fun story. Like, when he was drafted in the 4th round, his draft year out of UW, it was best blocker in the draft. Probably not going to give you much as a receiver, but best blocker in the draft. Could be a 6th lineman, right? Had that throwback mentality. Started losing his hair when he was in like 3rd grade, right? Looked older than he was. And then from the moment he stepped on the field, remember early in his rookie year, he had some big plays, real dynamic plays, running down the field, running guys over, stiff arming guys. And then he had the 2 brutal injuries that ruined both his first and second season after getting off to great starts in both of them. Came back after that. I just always loved the blue collar mentality, but his ability to contribute in the passing game too. He's just a laid back dude and a guy that kind of overcame some odds, and that's usually what I tend to lean into and be attracted to. Offensive tackle, no question, Walter Jones, one of the greatest to ever do it. Unfortunately, because he played in an era that had other elite all-time great left tackles, sometimes he gets left off some of these historical lists. But just a great, great, great player. And I love that we never had to see him play in another uniform ever. He was an all-time Seahawk. And then Abe Lucas. I really am rooting for him coming back this year and being as healthy as it appears that he is. I'd love nothing more for him to have a really productive year, start all 17 games, be really good, get a contract extension. He's a WSU guy. That's obviously something I have an affinity for. And I love the fact that he played in an air raid system his entire college career for Mike Leach. And so the questions about him, having to learn to be a run blocker, and then he shows up and he's just a badass and just pancaking guys in the run game. I really hope he's a part of our future beyond this year. I really do. At guard, the first one's obvious. The second one, not so much. Steve Hutchinson, 5 seasons with the Seahawks. You talk about a what if, right? We talked about this on the live stream the other night. Some alternate reality scenarios that we might do a show on here in the next couple of weeks. And one of them certainly is, what if Steve Hutchinson doesn't get away? One of the biggest GM blunders of all time. Simply put, Tim Ruskell wanting to save a couple $100,000. I think it was $1 million max. He saved by putting the transition tag on him instead of the franchise tag, and thus opening the door for a team to come in and sign him to an offer sheet. And the Vikings got creative enough that the Seahawks couldn't match, and he left. 3 Pro Bowls, 2 first-team All-Pros, and an All-Pro second team in his 5 seasons in Seattle. Just a great, great player. And even though he went on to great success in Minnesota and played on a bunch more Pro Bowls and made a bunch more All-Pro teams, came back to Seattle, he's been here. And he's contributing to the future and hopefully contributing to fixing this offensive line. Played a big role in the scouting and decision to draft Gray Zabel this year. And then J.R. Sweezy, another one. What did I say? I like good stories. And as much as Tom Cable tried to convert a bunch of dudes into offensive linemen, he got one right. J.R. Sweezy was a 7th-round draft pick. He was a defensive lineman. They switched him to guard. He ends up, he left and came back that one year, so he ended up with 64 starts in the Seahawks career. Never made a Pro Bowl, but he was just nasty. He was a mauler. He was a badass, and just a fun story. The fact that he started as a rookie after never playing offensive line before is pretty crazy. Center, this one is pretty obvious for me. Like, not only is he another Coug, but Robbie Tobeck's story is pretty amazing. And man, I've tried to have him on the show before. He used to come in to eat at El Gaucho all the time. We're Facebook friends, but I can't connect with him. He's always out fishing now anyway, living his best life. I think he's in the insurance business now. But here's his story, and if you didn't know this, just take a moment. He only played 4 games in high school of tackle football because they didn't have a football program at his high school. They played flag football only. So he only played 4 games of tackle football. So thus, he didn't get any big offers, right? He went to Liberty, and then he ended up transferring to WSU. Obviously, started his career in Atlanta. I think he played 5 years there, and then came to the Seahawks. Ended up with 88 starts in 7 years. Was part of those great lines with Hutch and Walter Jones. Really, really good football player. Little bit of trivia. Oddly enough, I had to remind myself of this. I had completely forgot this. The first year that he was acquired, when he was signed as a free agent in Seattle, he didn't start. He only played in 4 games, and he didn't start any games. He didn't immediately get plugged in. You know why? You know who was starting in his place? It was Chris Gray. Chris Gray started for 2 years at center before kicking over to right guard. I had forgotten about that. On the defensive side of the ball, obviously Cortez Kennedy, that Southern drawl, that personality. He was just a big teddy bear, always smiling. Didn't look like an athlete at his size, right? Looked like a guy that just ate a lot of chicken and dumplings. But he could dunk a basketball. He was such an amazing athlete. And then he was so good that year in 1992 that he won Defensive Player of the year in the NFL for a 2-win team with an offense that only averaged 8 points a game. That's how good he was. And then Joe Nash, I think one of the unsung Seahawks of all time, one of the more underrated Seahawks of all time, played his entire 15-year career here, 218 games. That is still number one. I'm not sure if that's a record that'll ever be broken. In this era of free agency and players playing shorter careers because they're making more money, I think Joe Nash might hold on to that record for a very, very long time. Played his entire 15 years here. And for a nose tackle, 47 and a half sacks in his career. He's a really good penetrator. Also had an NFL rule made for him. That's pretty notable, right? Can't fake injuries anymore. Can't do it. The Cincinnati Bengals just were pissed off. So they had to change that rule. Defensive end, and again, some of these, depending on scheme changes and stuff over the years, outside linebacker, defensive end, whatever. Michael Bennett, again, his career wasn't really that long here. Just 75 games over 5 seasons. But another story. Signed as an undrafted free agent out of Texas A&M, ends up getting cut, goes to Tampa Bay, plays well enough over 2 years, becomes a free agent again. Seahawks get him back same day they signed Cliff Averill on a real team-friendly deal. Turns out to be one of the great defensive linemen in our history. And just the way he played, just frenetic, hair on fire, could get on all fours and play defensive tackle, could play defensive end. I don't think the Seahawks win a Super Bowl if they don't have that one day where they sign Michael Bennett and Cliff Averill. That in and of itself should be a story. He's a little bit difficult to coach at times, right? And kind of wore out his welcome and got tired of Pete Carroll and wanted out. But man, he was a fun player to watch during his time here. And then Red Bryant's the other one. I mean, certainly there were more flashy defensive ends in our history with a lot more sack numbers, but similar to Cortez Kennedy, that personality, just like he was like the guy that sits on the porch and everyone from the neighborhood gathers around, just listens to him tell stories, like just so down home and humble. Another great story of having his role changed to get the most out of him. And he was playing defensive tackle, as you would think that he would at 330, 335 pounds. And then Pete moved him to 5-tech defensive end and just said, you just hold down that edge. You just fortify that edge, guard that edge, stuff the run. Man, they had some great run defenses during his time there. Huge part of that Super Bowl team. I think some people forget that he was on that team. Just a great character. And plus he had a pick six at 340 pounds or whatever. That was maybe more fun to watch than the Leonard Williams pick six from a year ago. Outside linebacker KJ Wright, 4th-round pick, one of the great draft picks of John Schneider's career, played 10 years here, could do it all. Like, I remember when he was drafted, there was some skepticism because he was so tall and he was so long, 6'4" with those long arms. But he used those to his advantage. Like, nearly 1,000 tackles, 13 and a half sacks, 6 interceptions, 68 tackles for loss. And maybe his legacy was one of the greatest I've ever seen at sniffing out screenplays and running them down. Also, just one of the great dudes off the field. Had a chance to meet him a number of times and serve him. Super, super nice. Really great dude. Chad Brown is one of the players in Seahawks history that I constantly forget about. Probably because he wasn't a draft pick. He wasn't a native Seahawk. But maybe one of the best free agents they've ever signed. Played 8 years here after obviously starting his career in Pittsburgh. 48 sacks, 55 tackles for loss, 2 Pro Bowls, a first-team All-Pro selection. He was really, really good. And again, just another guy that I loved the play style. I just loved the motor and how hard he played and always 100 miles an hour. Seahawks have whiffed on some free agents and trades for veterans over the years, but Chad Brown was a home run. Inside linebacker, Bobby Wagner. 11 years total in Seattle, left, came back, left again. He has averaged 155 tackles in his career. He sits just 221 tackles away from Ray Lewis, the all-time NFL leader. So he'd probably have to play 2 more years to get there. But a guy that for the last 4 years has been told you're too old and too slow and can't do it anymore and has had to sign 1-year deals. Like, he just keeps playing. He keeps being productive. If he can play 2 more seasons, he might end up as the all-time leading tackler in NFL history. Also a leader and just another one of those great character guys. One of the nicest players I've ever met. Also, to this day, the all-time record probably will remain since I don't do that anymore. Biggest tip I've ever been given by anyone. Yeah, that was a good night. Dave Wyman is another one. And I'm not holding it against him that he just won't come on the show. Paul Moyer even reached out to him in an email and said, hey, I've been on the show. This guy does a great job. You should go on there. I've tried emailing him and following up. I can't get a hold of him. So he doesn't want to come on my show, but I like the job he does as a broadcaster too. But he was just one of my favorite players. Only played 6 seasons in Seattle, was beat up, banged up, hurt the whole time. He talks about how he's had like 20 plus surgeries in his life. And you could see by the way he played, just all out, all the time, 100% effort, 365 tackles and only 3.5 sacks. And I was shocked to go back and see that number again because one of the memories that I have of him is, and let me see if I can find it because I did. Is this it? Yes. Okay. I tried to find the highlight. Maybe it's the Mandela effect, but there's a play that sticks in my mind from his career that kind of sums up the way he played the game. I thought it was against the Broncos and John Elway, where he's coming up the middle and on a blitz, and the running back or somebody comes over to try and take him on, and he just dives over that player and gets the sack. Could not find that play anywhere, and I feel like I've seen it fairly recently. But again, maybe it's Mandela effect. I did find this. I screenshotted it so I wouldn't get nailed for copyright. He did go airborne on this one, but he's coming off the edge. The other one I remember I thought was more up the middle, and this is Jim Kelly and not John Elway. So maybe I'm misremembering it. Please tell me if you remember the play I'm talking about, or maybe if this is the one. But he was relentless and just absolutely loved the way he played the game. And this is back in the day with, the big shoulder pads and the neck roll and all of that. Corners, Richard Sherman, of course, he really reshaped that corner position in the NFL for quite a while. Teams are still looking for length there in a way that they didn't before him. And then just again, it was frustrating at times, kind of, and some of the issues that were caused and some of the chemistry problems that the way he was wired brought on after the Super Bowl runs. But you can't argue with the production. You can't argue, and just the way he played the game. Just, I like the brashness on the field. He was cocky, but he could back it up. And you just always felt a sense of comfort when Richard Sherman was on the field. Marcus Trufant, a couple of recurring reasons. Not just that he was a Coug, but he played in his entire football career in the Northwest. It's pretty rare and pretty cool. Played his high school football in Tacoma, then went to Washington State, then was drafted by the Seahawks and played his entire 10 years. 7th all-time in team history with 21 interceptions. He was never an all-pro. I don't even know if he made a Pro Bowl. I'd have to look. But there's so much value in a 10-year starting player that you can count on year in, year out. You cannot dismiss that type of contribution over time to a team. And another guy that's just a dude you want on your team. Also someone who has agreed to come on the show, and I have his phone number in my phone, and I just haven't been able to get him to commit. So if any of you know Marcus, say, hey, go on Dan's show. Safeties. This was an interesting duo. Cam Chancellor, obviously. The way he hit, the way he played the game. So sad that his career came to a premature end with the neck injury. Would have loved to have seen him keep playing. Just an all-time great Seahawk, and another one that transformed the culture, really helped make up the identity of that team. That hit he put on Demaryius Thomas early in the Super Bowl against the Broncos really set a tone. There are some who believe that he should have got more consideration for MVP of the game instead of Malcolm Smith because of the tone that he set early. Just a tremendous all-time Seahawk. And then Paul Moyer, not just because he's a good friend of the show and has been on the show multiple times, will be on again, is featured in the promo on my channel, saying nice things about me in the channel. But another guy, very Wymanish in the way that he played the game. Just complete sacrifice of his body. Another guy who was almost always battling injuries and but was really productive. 7 seasons in Seattle. He had 11 interceptions. Came back later in his career and coached DBs here for quite a while. Still part of the radio program pre and post game. And I love listening to him talk about the game. Just a really intelligent dude, as you would imagine safeties would be. But there's an injury that he sustained at one point in his career against Denver Broncos in the first half of a game in the Kingdom. Came back, played the entire second half with this injury. I'm not going to talk about the injury. It's very sensitive. But some of you may know what I'm talking about. If you don't, Google it. The fact he was able to play the second half of that game, of any game, with that injury, he's an all-timer for me. So I actually think when I saw those throwback road jerseys come out this year, I thought, okay, who am I going to get? And I've been considering this concept for a while, but I think I'll do it with the whites. I'm going to get a Devin Witherspoon because then, number 21, it's not just a Witherspoon, it's also a Paul Moyer. And then specialists, you know, some of you might not care, but Stephen Hauschka, he just always made it look so easy. He was so smooth. Best field goal percentage in Seahawks history, 89%. He was usually very, very reliable. With one notable exception, the 6-6 tie in Arizona in, what year was that? 2017. A game I was at in Arizona, one of the worst games I've ever seen, let alone attended. He missed a chip shot in that game. But otherwise, very, very reliable. Had 15 field goals over 50 yards. Was just very, very consistent. And then Michael Dixon, of course, at punter. It's hard to believe he's played 7 years now. I think he's going to be a Seahawk for at least another 7. He's already on his 3rd contract, just signed a new one. I think he's going to be here for his entire career. I could see him kicking for 20 years in this league. The thing that baffles me about Michael Dixon, and maybe this will be the year that it turns around, is his rookie year, he was first team All-Pro, and then nothing since. Even though every meaningful stat, he has improved year by year by year. He's a better punter now than he was as a rookie, and yet he's the highest paid punter in the league, and yet no All-Pro or Pro Bowls since that first year. That needs to change. And then kick return was an interesting one. Leon Washington was only on the team for 3 years, but to this day, he still has more kickoff touchdown returns than anyone with 4. He had 2 of them in one game against the Chargers at home. It was crucial in us winning that particular game. They were down 10, I think, when he ran the one back in the second half. Really explosive, really dynamic. Averaged 26.2 yards per kickoff return. You felt like he could score anytime he touched the ball. And it always frustrated me that they didn't use him on offense. I always thought that was a missed opportunity for Mike Holmgren. In his 4 years with the Jets before he became a Seahawk, he caught 127 balls and was really, really dynamic. Explosive, playmaker, all the qualities you saw as a returner. You saw that coming out of the backfield as well. And the Seahawks just never really used him. He only had 23 catches in Seattle in 3 seasons, 127 in 4 for the Jets. I thought that was a real missed opportunity for Mike Holmgren and the Seahawks. All right, that's the All Dan team, you guys. It's probably a one of a kind. This is a one-off show. I'll never do the All Dan team again because 10 years from now, it's probably going to be mostly the same. I don't know, maybe a couple guys will sneak in there. We'll see. If I'm still here 10 years from now doing this, somebody remind me to do another All Dan team. Hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. Read my Substack. It's free. Check that out down below, along with all the other ways you can support me as a full-time content creator. Training camp's coming up, 18 days away. I'll be there on the field, covering the team with full access those first few days, and then fingers crossed, moving forward, they will grant me full season credentials. I'll keep you updated on that for sure. Thanks for watching and listening, you guys. It's all because of you that all this is happening, and I appreciate every bit of it. Until next time, I'm Dan. This is Seahawks Forever. Thanks for watching.